Greetings, adventurers. This is Lauren, your guild advisor, and this is my hodgepodge, very sloppy Astrea record part 2 story discussion coming out very late, so it's going to be unscripted, and I apologize for this. I did declare back during the part 1 discussion that I would try to get it out earlier, and I declare that knowing full well that I had to prepare to move, and then settle in, and then also do the Sword of Retoria Volume 12 review and discussion. I said that with all that in mind, and here we are today, like days away before Part 3 probably comes out. So I apologize for that. This is, again, going to be an unscripted video, and I'll try to do an actual scripted out video like Part 1 was. It was 20 minutes long. I can't believe the script was that long. But let's just quickly go over some of the key points in Part 2, some of my favorite parts, and just the stuff happening in general. First of all, there's probably going to be a stream. There will be a stream tomorrow as of this recording, which is Tuesday the 11th. And they're going to have an actual voice PV, so you'll actually be able to hear the voices for the event. And hopefully that means that Part 3 will launch with the voices along with Part 1 and Part 2. And that makes me want to go, do I want to rewatch Part 1 and Part 2 before doing Part 3 because voices are added? And when you look everything up, it's actually like 6 hours long pretty much, just with auto playing through Part 1 and Part 2. And let's just do some role play. I had the game open to have some kind of B-roll, so let's just have, I prepared this. You're gonna see Alan training with Utarl during this entire discussion, so let's go ahead and do that. But actually, just dive into Part 2, and let's just do the predictions for the units right now. It hasn't really changed that much. We got a new Shakti and new Osvi with Part 2, which I was kind of expecting based on what Part 1 showed us, because they had different costumes, different outfits. And I think that pretty much just kind of confirms, because the only other character that has a new outfit in the actual story that doesn't have a new unit yet is Alan. So hopefully Alan gets an actual new unit, and this time we'll actually be able to see his face, which would be pretty nice, because right now, as you can see, he has his visor on. So hopefully a new Alan. Definitely there will be a new Utarl that faces off against Zard. That was in the first PV. And then Ryu, of course, as I've been saying, like, this is Ryu's event. Just like with Argonaut, last year's second anniversary event, there was a welfare Argonaut that was for free, that you grinded for free to +5, and then the second part of the Argonaut event, we got Argonaut on the actual gacha banners. So I assume Part 3 of the gacha banners will get an actual gacha Ryu, and that is also influenced in one of the portrait arts that's part of the icon in the European version of the game, where you see Ryu holding her Alps Lumina. So I would assume that we're going to get 2 full-blown banners again, and I've always said I desperately want them to have these original characters made for this event as units, and those need to be Erebus, Zard, and Althea. I want them all on the banner. I know that kind of messes with, like, usually it's 1 assist and then 2 adventurers, but they haven't been they haven't shied away from going a different route with how the banners work. Like, sometimes they just go like, okay, this banner has a bunch of adventurers, and you have a chance to get that assist on the other banner on this banner. So maybe that's a way to do it. Like, if it's 3 and 3, it's Utarl, Alan, Ryu, and then Erebus, Zard, and Althea. And I really hope that's the case, because I really want, like, finally, for like original characters to actually be units in the game. The Argonaut characters kind of count, but kind of don't, because they resemble the other characters in this game. Like, Argonaut resembles Bell. Actually, it's the other way around, because Argonaut came before him, technically, chronologically, but you get the point. Yuri, Vet, Ariadne, Eyes, and so on and so forth. But again, let's just dive right into Part 2. It starts off with us seeing Eyes and Riveria. We got the very young Eyes. I think she's about, I'd say about 10 here. I don't remember if, like, we get her actual age, but I believe she's about 10, and also level 3. Yeah, no, Eyes is 9 years old in this event. I don't know what I was on while recording this, but this event takes place 7 years before present day, and Eyes is 16 in present day Horario. So 16 minus 7, 9 years old, which is to my surprise, but In one of the recent, not I say recent, but probably like a week or two ago, Omori Sensei like said that pretty much Aiz and Ryu started being adventurers around the same time and also progressed in levels at about the same pace. And you see here later on that Aiz and Ryu actually battle it out, 2 level 3s against each other. But it's a nice wholesome scene between Aiz and Reveria. I say wholesome because their relationship is like a mom and daughter, and they're off sending our lovely 10-year-old Aiz, 9 years old, to go against some of the members of Evilis that are wandering around Auraria on the outskirts, just clearing them off. And you get to see that nickname of her that she had when she was little, the doll princess, because she looked so like fragile like a doll. She was emotionless. But I love the relationship with Aiz and Reveria, and it's really creepy at the same time because we have this 10-year-old 9 taking out members of Evilis and not even caring that she's like being covered in dirt and blood, and Reveria having to wipe it off. So I love Reveria and Aiz's dynamic in here. And then later on we have a scene between Shakti and the rest of her familia, and she like it's almost like a defense mechanism to avoid thinking about Artie, because you see later on at the very end of this part 2 that Shakti does indeed weep about Artie, but Shakti like is trying to use what Artie did during part 1 as she died as an example, like, don't be naive like Artie. I don't want to lose anyone else. And Ryu sees that and she gets really upset. And then you see later on that Shakti's happy that Ryu was upset at that, because I think if no one got upset, like with Shakti like saying that about her sister, and if no one got upset about that, because I assume Ganesha Familia knew what was really going on in Shakti's mind because she is their captain. But deep down inside, Shakti wanted someone to like reprimand her for saying such things about her sister. And then throughout all of this event is Ryu trying to come to terms with what justice is, because some people might think that Ryu is like being a big baby about this, because there are other people like Aiz that are just fighting despite all the tragic stuff that's happening. But Ryu is someone that's like pretty much put her entire being, like her very existence is tied to this concept of justice, because it's justice that saved her one day with Elise. Because as you see later on, Ryu left her hometown forest and said she would never return, so all she had was herself. And then she got saved by Elise against Jura, which is a name that will pop up later on in Danmachi novels if you don't know about Jura quite yet. But the concept of justice is, again, something that Ryu is very much tied to, and she is struggling with that throughout this entire part 2 of the event. And part 2 of this event is pretty much everyone trying to come to terms with what happened in part 1, and then just trying to calm themselves down and get ready for part 3, which is going to be the final battle, the final clash. And in the middle of all this, as Ryu is wandering, she like goes into the place where Artie fell, and she meets Aiz, and that's where they do battle, because Aiz automatically thinks anyone suspicious is an enemy and doesn't bother trying to converse, and so they just fight. And then Ryu's like, oh, what the hell, let's fight, I'm frustrated. And then as soon as Reveria pops in, Ryu's like, oh crap, and Aiz is like, oh crap. Aiz especially, because she actually has to stay there and take a beating from Reveria. And Ryu gets the heck out of there. And one thing I like to point out is just how similar both Ryu and Aiz are in appearance. Like, as you see here, when Ryu was younger, she had longer blonde hair, and Aiz has long blonde hair, and they're both associated with the wind element, and they're both swordswomen. And it's just so interesting to think about that. Like, if Astrea Familia did not fall, like, maybe it's not Aiz who Belle falls for, but it's Ryu, because she's very much the picture of Aiz in a sense, just a little bit older, a little bit wiser. But maybe that's just the Ryu fanboy in me talking. And then later on in the event, Erebus like sets up a small kind of trap for Ryu and then tries to talk to her about justice. And this is like one of the most frustrating parts of the event for me, not because of like the actual contents of the event itself, but strictly because of the translation. And like, the translation always was not the greatest for this game. especially for like long events like this where they had to translate tons of text all at the same time. But it's just so much more apparent of how poor of a like localization quality that this event has in particular, especially when comparing it to a translated light novel in Sorbatoria Volume 12, which I'd read in the middle of doing this event. Like the difference is quite stark when you compare the quality of the writing, the translation between a DanMachi light novel that's officially translated to the DanMachi mobile game. And when Write Flyer took like the rights over from Crunchyroll, because Crunchyroll used to be the distributor for this game, and I believe they did the localization, and then Write Flyer Studio, which is the actual studio that makes this game, just took over the localization in-house. I feel like the quality has suffered a little bit, like even though like we get news like through the slides a lot faster, it seems like the translation has suffered quite a bit. Sometimes it feels like that they're just translating the words literally and don't even give it like an editing pass, and that's how it feels a lot for a lot of the talk between Erebus and Ryu, or like anytime they talk about like philosophical things, like the concept of justice. Like it was just very difficult to read through. Like the English is there and you can understand if you look at it for a bit and like try to reword it in your head, but you shouldn't have to reword translations in your head for it to make sense. It should just make sense on the first read through, and that's just frustrating because this is a story that we very much would love to read in great quality. This is actually written by the author of the light novel series, Fujimori Sensei. So a lot of this is pretty much canon material, and you would want that canon material to make perfect sense. But that's a little rant. But Erebus and Ryu have that discussion about what justice is, and then Erebus even has like this little riddle, like, who would you choose to save, this little girl or like 3 people? And you had to choose like which track to go on in your like little train car. You can only choose one track. Who would you run over, basically, because you can't stop this, you can only change the track. And then Ryu just like can't answer the question, and it's a cruel question. Like if that was me, I'd try to be a little smart, be a little smug, and be like, oh well, I'll stop the train with my body, that way the only person that dies is me. Oh god, that's a tragic choice right there. But as Ryu is being held there hostage, Erebus has Ryu like watch Osfi get beaten down by Olivus and all the evils that are in the vicinity. And then that's when Ryu is like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna go and save Osfi. And then Erebus is like, oh boy, here we go. And what do you know, the person that already saved earlier in part 1 comes back to save Ryu in here. And it's beautiful because Artie said like justice comes around, and so Artie helped this person, and this person does their good turn in return for that good turn for Ryu, and that is beautiful in that way. And then later on we have Astrea and Erebus talk, and Astrea explains that there isn't just one definition of justice. There's as many justices as there are stars in the sky. Justice isn't one like sole thing. Like justice can be a concept, it can be what you want it to be, basically. And then later on, Elise like kind of comes to that same type of conclusion. He's like, well, I don't know what justice is. Let's look for it together, Ryu. And I don't want to ignore Osfi as well. Like Osfi has this like extreme faith in Ryu, and it's beautiful to hear that Osfi trusts Ryu so much. Like Ryu will be here. She will fight for justice. And then the combined powers of Astrea Familia and Hermes Familia stopped Olivus' attack on Aurario. And then we jump into like a little foreshadowing scene with the evils, and we see the appearance of a certain familiar, like a certain god, and his name is Rudra. And many people might not remember what Rudra is, but that is the name of the familia that set the trap which killed, which pretty much destroyed Astrea Familia except for Ryu, and that's the same familia that Ryu destroyed in her anger in revenge for Astrea Familia's death. Now, again, this event takes place 2 years before Astrea Familia falls, so unless they do like a flash forward like at the end of this event and then reference Astrea Familia's death, you're not going to see them like actually die in this event. And it would be a really bittersweet thing to end if they just like flash forward, this is how they die. I assume that like Astrea Familia will emerge triumphant at the very end of this event, and then it will just flash forward back to Ryu at the grave in present day Orario. And then we have Shakti and Ryu reconcile back at Ryu's Familia home, where Shakti finally gives Ryu the branch from her forest, the sacred branch that was stolen. And Shakti says Artie wanted Ryu to have this, so she does accept it. And yo, you know it's coming. You know they're gonna turn that sacred branch into Ryu's signature weapon, Alv's Lumina. But when I saw Finn say like we need everyone to meet here at midnight, I'm like, are they about to like Ryu's gonna find someone to create a weapon out of that branch in like hours? Like I wonder how that's gonna go down, because you have to think that they're gonna have her use that weapon in this event, and she somehow found someone to make the weapon during this event before midnight happened and the attack starts. And I do want to mention like the Full Metal Alchemist-esque scene with Shakti and Ganesha when Shakti finally tries to pay a visit to Shakti's grave, and then Shakti's like, I can't cry right now. Now's not the time. Ganesha cries for her, and then they say, man, it's too bad it's raining right now. And then like Full Metal Alchemist style, they don't show Shakti's whole face. They show like tears streaming down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen this before. And then we go back to here where I've been replaying over and over again. Alan Otaro training, and then Finn picking Otaro up. I'm like, man, Alan looks like he's in bad shape, but it looks like he's just fine and dandy for the meeting at midnight in Orario at the Central Park. And Finn rallies everyone up, and then Lyra says Finn's the ultimate con artist. He's inspiring everyone, making them believe that the impossible is possible, because that is him. He is the braver. And then we see that the Evil's attack in part 1 in this event was a big decoy to summon a Nightmare, a Monster Rex, something probably more powerful than Monster Rex, into the dungeon, and then to make it go out of the dungeon and attack Orario. And they actually reference like the Monster Rex, the regular that appeared in Volume 5 of Danmachi, or at the very end of Season 1, the Black Goliath. They reference that. It's very similar because that appeared because Hestia like accidentally let some of her power leak, and then the dungeon responded by spawning that irregular Black Goliath. But here, the Monster Rex is going to be undoubtedly a lot stronger than what that Black Goliath was in Season 1 or Volume 5 of Danmachi, because the Evils actually sacrificed evil gods to summon this. It wasn't just like, oh, I leaked some power out. They sacrificed a god to summon this, so it's going to be immensely powerful. And then Finn says we're going to have 2 different groups of people. Those that go against the Evils, and then those who fight the Nightmare. And I can only assume that it's going to be Astrea Familia that fights the Nightmare, and then it makes sense because Zard and Althea are level 7, and we don't really have anyone in the Astrea Familia that could fight a level 7. It seems that Lyra and Finn have cooked something up, some kind of magic tool that they asked Osvi to craft to deal with Althea, but they're definitely going to need like a lot of Loki and Freya Familia to deal with Zard and Althea, and then I can only assume that the fight against Zard is going to be mostly a solo fight with Otaro wearing some type of new armor. And we still have like the 3 evilist leaders as well, Valletta, Olivus, and Vito to deal with as well. But again, I do assume that it's going to be Astrea Familia that's going to be the main force against the Nightmare. It'll be a cool way to show off Astrea Familia in a good light, because they're taking part in like one big part going against the Nightmare rather than going against like random evils. I'm interested to see what they'll have Eyes do as well, being a level 3. Like, is she going to be fighting the evilist leaders, or just fighting some henchmen like she was doing here at the very beginning? But it is very appropriate that Loki and Freya Familia deal with both Zard and Althea, because they are the like remaining people from Zeus and Hera Familia, the same Familia that Loki and Freya Familia drove out, so they gotta finish what they started and defeat those 2, while Astrea Familia is likely the ones, again, that will defeat the Nightmare. So that pretty much covers all of part 2, and if you want to leave comments below to see what your speculations are, what you think the next units will be, I know it's kind of untimely with this video because the live stream should be coming out tomorrow night, and depending when you watch this video, they might already have revealed the new units. But again, who are your hopes for the new units, and where do you think the story will go? What were your favorite moments in part 2 of this event? Very much looking forward to whenever it comes out. You can only assume that part 3 is going to start this week because that's when the part 2 banners end, but we do have a 3rd anniversary, a Hestia and Bell banner until next week, so that's also possible it's next week, but I think it's going to be this week, hopefully. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, I apologize for getting this out so late, but look on the bright side, for part 3, I don't have a part 4 waiting for me in the face, and I don't have to move anywhere during part 3, so that video should be a lot more timely than these past 2. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more DanMachi content, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and join my Discord. And as always, continue enjoying your time avenging Mario and the dungeon. This is Lauren, your guild advisor, signing out.
風に揺らいでゆく鈍色の光照らす世界で今選ぼうその